And we're live. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining for this morning session. I'm Paulina, and this is Paddy.
Hello.
Hope everyone had a lovely long weekend, whoever is in Sydney.
Australia.
Oi, oi, oi. Well, I'm trying to be Australian very soon, so I'm trying to be as Australian as I can be. Thanks so much again. Feel free to introduce yourself and say where you work, where you come from will be amazing. And if you have any questions along the way, you can use the Ask a Question area in here where we can prioritize the questions for you. Today's session is not our typical webinar, I would say. And today is more about what we believe in and just a bit more on why we kind of created Streamtime, what's the reason behind it, and yeah, our biggest values in project management.
Yeah, it's a big picture webinar. We're interested in taking a step back and not only looking at your studio and Streamtime and how they work together, but thinking about how teams are working in 2019, how they're working together, and how just the general workplace has changed, I suppose, over the years. And what role a tool like Streamtime does play in that or can play in that, and what we're interested in being able to do, or what we're kind of interested in being able to push, I suppose, being in the position where we are, where we all of a sudden a service that, you know, people are using on a daily basis to talk, to communicate and work in their teams. And it's a really interesting position to be in, because we can take any particular stance. And what we'll talk about a little bit is having come from Streamtime Classic, which a few of you, I can see Bianca here from Brandpool. They've just migrated across to the new Streamtime. So Streamtime Classic, for you who don't know, is our legacy product. It's been around for a while, but we'll be talking a little bit about the differences between that and the new Streamtime in kind of the philosophy that they embrace in their software. And that's not necessarily to say that they either is right or wrong. It's more of like a comment on where things were at when that product was built, which is really interesting because it's changed so much over the course of about 15 years.
Exactly. Pat is right. So since work culture and everything changing so much rapidly, we kind of trying to, we go along that change and trying to pursue this healthy work culture that once you achieve that, it can take you a long way for the business. You know, obviously, happy team is happy wife, happy life, happy team, happy life, I guess. And here in Streamtime, I just got that. I'm funny. Okay, so in Streamtime, we do our best to encourage that healthy work and healthy culture in the workplace among the team.
Definitely. We encourage it, one, because it's what we believe in. We share that culture here. We're fortunate enough to have that. But it's interesting because over the course of the last, 10 years, I think there's just been this big shift in what people expect from a workplace, and to the point where one of the, key trends in workplaces is thinking about the people in the business and changing structures from a more top-down, hierarchical, traditional business structure to a more flat structure where everyone's side by side in a team. And there are a few reasons for that. And one of the big ones is because it comes down to, treating the people in your business like, people, everyone's equal, right? And that kind of comes in one of the the big things that we talk about in Streamtime is treating people like humans and not robots, which is why we've moved to a to-do list away from the traditional timesheet. But also, what does that mean? What does that involve, like in that process? And I suppose we've kind of seen that happen on the wider scope. The smaller businesses are interested in kind of grouping together in teams. The rise of the freelancer has meant that it needs to be easier to adapt to a business culture and to fit in, and that can be nice and easy. So we're kind of we have that in mind when we're thinking about Streamtime and when we're looking at how this is going to work. Does it work for the subscriber, the person who's going to be essentially paying for Streamtime for the team? but does it also work for the team member at the end of the day? Is the person who's going to be living in Streamtime happy and able to get by and prioritize what they need to get done in their life, not just at work?
Yeah, exactly. So as Patty said, people can take you anywhere you like once you set this goal, and it is very encouraging to be part of that big picture and understand where your team is heading. So that's why there are a few areas in Streamtime where your team can actually collaborate and work together to achieve that goal. One of them, I would say, is our scheduling, which is super fluid. And in the scheduling, you can adapt to changes. You can quickly allocate those tasks, not just rely on someone to allocate those tasks for you. Or you can actually plan your own weeks, plan your own lives, because work is not just work. It's every day you have to do your job, obviously, but there's other things in life that take your time as well, so that you can plan your weeks ahead and plan a bit more for yourself rather than waiting for someone to make that decision.
For sure. It's about having that balance and being able to design a life that is equal parts work and life, and ensuring that you're making time for yourself in there. And before we kind of do, dive further into this, which we're really keen to do, is maybe just address the housekeeping, because we just dived straight past it today, which is good. It's obviously an interesting topic of conversation that we all want to chat about. So thanks everyone for introducing yourself so far. And Matt, I think we'll come around to your question at the end. Matt has asked a question at the top there, which is really interesting, asking about keeping an eye on the team. What are the signs of them potentially burning out, and how do you prevent that? So that's really interesting. We might be able to share some of our learnings from here at Streamtime, and also talk about some of the work in the creative community. But great to see you all introducing yourself, a few familiar faces. And if you do have questions as we go, the Ask a Question field down the bottom, the button down the bottom where Antonia's already dropped a question is awesome. So just use that. It'll make it easier for us to manage questions at the end, and we'll come back and we can have a bit of a discussion about those.
Yep.
If you guys do have thoughts as you go, any other questions, just drop them into that side chat bar, and we'll do our best to deal with them as we go.
Yeah.
And Aaron, our founder, is tuning in here from Noosa. Lucky him, he's up on holidays, but getting a bit of work done too, it seems. So g'day, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron. And as Patty said as well, it's a discussion. So if you like to add some comments on anything that we say, and maybe help us out with the maths question here as well, you can do so easily.
The maths question?
Maths
question.
Welcome
question.
to the Russian world.
Get some low division happening. And also Matt, Tom, from Good Chat, you certainly had a few points in there which we'll look at and kind of deal with that question, tackle that one too. So if you do have comments on that as we look at it, it would be great to hear your thoughts as we go. Cool.
All right. So should we? I think the area we should focus on is the scheduling.
Yeah.
And maybe we will touch a bit on on Team's to-do screen as well.
Cool. Well, why don't we start with the All right.
Start with the to-do?
Yeah, let's start with the to-do screen. We're already here. And maybe this is a good chance to talk about Tom's question in terms of getting the team to manage their own time. So what is happening in the to-do screen, Polly? I know a lot of us probably already know, but what are we trying to do in the to-do screen?
Obviously, we are a project management tool, so we're trying to stay on top of the projects and be organized. So biggest thing in project management world is to actually know where your time's going. So first thing is you have your own good plan of the week, and then we'll be able to kind of have this realistic approach in where you're heading towards the end of the week, and how much time are you planning to spend on those tasks, on those jobs, those items in a way. And then you will track time against those jobs. And the way we kind of design this to-do screen is for you to not just use this tracking time and recording this time spent as a boring task. It's actually an entertaining bit of your day. So once something is completed, you will drag it into done, and in this way you all know that it will track this time. You can prioritize your work, you plan your week ahead, you can move stuff around despite it showing, you can duplicate tasks, you can do a lot in here, and set yourself up for a successful week and achieve those goals that you set up for yourself.
Cool. So there's something you said there that I want to talk about some more, which is setting yourself up for a successful week. What we want people to do, and what you mentioned, is that we want people to get in the habit of planning their weeks ahead of time. We find that when teams do that, that's when they get to work most effectively. Now, one way of planning work ahead of time is using the schedule. You can go in, if you have a studio manager, if you do have a big team, that's historically what people love to do, is plan out everyone in the studio's week, so they know exactly what's happening at any point in time. Now, that's all well and fine, but we're interested in going another step further and giving the autonomy to the team members to actually plan their own week. Because within this screen, within the to-do screen, our team knows exactly what they need to work on, when it's due, and how much time is remaining on that, so long as we've got Streamtime set up correctly. And we're using this sidebar here to do that. I can see my items, and this is everything that I'm currently assigned to. So these are all the tasks that have been allocated to, and I can see also how much time is remaining on this. Now, this 9.5 hour task, it's saying it's 9.5 hours over. So hopefully that one's wrapping up soon. It's due tomorrow, actually, and I can see there's someone else working on that. So I know that I'm working on that with a teammate and that things have gone a little bit over. But it's also important that I'm able to still get that work done if that's what's required for tomorrow's deadline. Streamtime's not going to let me do that. And that kind of further cements this idea of letting the creative, the person who's doing that work, do the work that needs to get done at the end of the day.
Exactly.
But we're really interested in giving people the autonomy to see what they need to do on a Monday morning, come in here, and based on their sidebar, plan out their week by just picking up these tasks and dropping them into their to-do list and planning out their week ahead of time.
Yeah. In my opinion, I just think your team will feel trusted in a way that you trust them with planning their weeks and prioritizing their days, their tasks in a way that works for them and also for your business. You know, they're a two-way street. You know, it's a win-win in here. So you, not only as a subscriber or a studio manager, you don't have to spend this time planning everybody's weeks, and perhaps you don't fully know, maybe this is not a good day for them to work on something. So you can trust them on doing that themselves. And so they will feel much more, I would say, appreciated.
Certainly. It's trust, and it's giving the team members onus to kind of do their own work. And Aaron's just made a really good point there. I'll read out that comment he's just dropped in. The phrase carrot and stick is a metaphor for the use of combination of reward and punishment to induce a desired behavior. Attracted by the sight and smell, the donkey steps forward to bite at the carrot, but of course, as it is attached to the stick, the carrot also moves forward and remains out of reach. So that's a really interesting comment there from Aaron. I'll let you guys stew on that one. But it is about incentivizing the team to do the work that's needed based on trusting them. And what happens in that process is that you have an honest team who's actually planning work and getting the work done at a time that they need to. And what happens in that is that the data that you'll get about your jobs is going to be truer. It's going to show more in representative of the work that actually happened on a certain day, rather than just some pie in the sky figure. And for example, I had a doctor's appointment this morning. So I'm dropping this into my to-do list just as a personal task, because I know that that's 1 hour less today that I'll be able to work, and I want that to show here.
I think it's really important to do this, to add those personal tasks for your week on your to-do screen. Very important, because your team know that obviously this is part of their lives. It's unavoidable. It's like eating, having lunch. It does require time, and to be able to stay healthy and to have a good work environment, you want to plan your other tasks, your life tasks in a week as well. So having that in place as a and communicating that to the team is a good way to start.
Certainly. Coming back to these items here and focusing on how the team can use this sidebar as well as possible to manage their own time, deadlines, and weeks. For example, I can see that this concepts task that's due in 2 months' time, it's got a bit of work on it, but I don't actually need to work on that this week. I don't really want to prioritize that. So the team can actually get in the habit of using tricks like snoozing tasks here to set this task to wake up at a time that's a bit more desirable. So in a few weeks when I need to look at that, I can do that. Now I can always return to my list of snooze tasks at the top here. So that is one way the team can always kind of keep stock of what they're working on, keep it in a place that they know they'll be able to find easily, but also not let it get in the way of the work that needs to get done more immediately, which might be these 80 hours of concept development, which I'll be doing over the next 2 weeks. Now, the date that we see here is really important. So that actually gets set up on the job. If I just click back through to this job, we'll be able to see that this concept development is due in 2 weeks' time, and it has a due date there, but it's really important that those dates are populated because the sidebar in the to-do screen is actually looking at those dates and telling our team when these things are going to be due. And a really way to kind of make sure that we've got our dates in place is to just jump into the schedule. And Tom, you made the point that sometimes deadlines shift. They always do. Luckily, our schedule makes it really easily to handle those changes. It's flexible, it's responsive to whatever changes might need to happen on the job. Even if work actually does need to be scheduled in this instance, it's super easy to then add a task to our team's to-do list if we want, and maybe just leave a note explaining what we need to get done. Cool. So taking advantage of things like that notes field to communicate exactly what needs to happen there is a nice way of doing that. But Patty, I can see, has actually been booked over here. See, we've got this heat map. So it's turning red because Patty has been overassigned for the number of hours available on those days. So that then kind of comes back as a really clear indicator of when our team is overworking potentially and when we might need to take the load off. So I could even push those tasks through to tomorrow if they're not super urgent. We don't want that person having to work too hard. We don't want to give them too much trouble, I suppose, or perhaps we're giving that to another team member.
Exactly. So this should you should flag this one straight away, and then if Patty is booked out but this task is quite urgent, for example, you can go into the to-do schedule and even have a look at who is available on that day and who has time to perhaps finish up this quick task, so Patty doesn't get overwhelmed with so many things going on in his day, and then maybe he can move stuff around to someone else.
So we can see that task that I've just created here, that note's popped to the top. It's easy for me to find, but maybe I do want to offload that one to Andy, for example, so I can easily click and drag that task between other people's to-do screens. It's really easy. Even if I need that to happen today, I could drop it up here.
Yeah.
And as you see, Andy will notice that he's now got this task. The note's saying Patty, but I'm sure Andy will get the message.
Yeah. So the to-do schedule is the good one, where you can actually you have a look at everyone's availabilities and what everyone's working on for the week. And if you see that on top of everyone's days, you will see the hours available. They should give you an indication that okay, you can schedule some extra time for your team, or if your team is actually scheduling their own tasks, they can maybe allocate a few other things in there for themselves, so they can work and they keep going achieving that goal.
Certainly. So it's not to say you're ever without a clear vision of what's happening in the studio as well. And, you know, sometimes a team member will be better at planning their week ahead than others, and that's normal. But it's always good to know that in the schedule, we do have that bird's eye view of the studio. We're able to see what's happening at any point in time and at least understand maybe what is happening in someone else's, you know, day. For example, I now know that this person was in a doctor's appointment, so maybe I want to ask them about how they're going, or perhaps even just know that that's 1 hour less today that they'll be able to work. So keeping these things in mind is really good too.
Yeah, and the team can help themselves as well. You know, you don't, as a studio manager or managing director, for example, you don't have to stay on top of that. They, for example, Patty will look at Andy's week and say, oh, okay, well organized. You know, maybe you can chat with Andy and see how is he organizing his week. What does he do? What are the tricks that he does to stay more on top of his projects? And if you see someone is not planning their weeks at all from the screen, you can, you know, help them out and say, hey, well, what's going on? Can I help you understand your deadlines, your screen, your to-do screen, so you will stay on top of your tasks?
Totally. We're coming up to the 21-minute mark here, so how about we open up and we take a couple of questions, and I can see there are a couple coming through, and while we are in the schedule, I just want to show Audrey, welcome Audrey.
Hi, Audrey.
From Swear Words, mentioned that she was interested in looking at forecasting studio availability. So that is another good way to understand and have a firmer control maybe of the work that's going to be coming through the studio at any point in time, understanding that you don't want to take on too much work at any point in time if that's going to be what's going to be burning your team out. Now, in order to do this, we can easily just use, we can see down the bottom here in the schedule, in the jobs area, I've got this team availability. I can set actually a date range in using those date brackets there. So using that, we can create a range, a bracket of dates that we might want to be looking at that capacity in. And just below here, I'm able to see when I hover over the work hours available for my team, what's currently been scheduled, which is what that to-do is showing me, and what the remaining availability there is too. Now, if you do happen to have a job in pause and schedule some time, or a task in pause, for example, what that means is that it won't appear on the team's to-do list as work to be done. You might want to be getting a feel for how much work will be coming through the studio at that point in time, but you don't want to create that task for the person yet. That'll also show here. So we call that soft scheduling, and that is a really nice way to kind of get a firm grasp of how much available time is there really in your studio, or will there be in your studio in perhaps 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really good one too. Now let's take a look at some of these questions. So Antonia said, I'm finding that there's more outsourcing. Would love to learn how Streamtime works with this way of trading. They won't have access to Streamtime. So Bianca's gone and responded saying, similarly, she manages in an ever-changing list of freelancers, so it would be good to manage and schedule these resources. So when it comes to freelancers, some teams like to have a team member, another user, which is just freelancer, and whoever the particular freelancer using, or working with the studio at that point in time can just come in and log in. That way they'll have access to their jobs that they need to, and you can schedule work for them too.
Yeah. Alternatively, if you have more than one freelancer working with you, for those teams who like to have their login for the freelancers, you can actually schedule tasks for them by adding their name into the notes, for example, so they know the task is actually for them, not for another freelancer, so they can use this joint login to have a look what's going on.
Definitely. But if you do maybe have 3 or 4 freelancers, you could always set up different accounts for them, and just know that we are very flexible when it comes to pricing. So if you do happen to have a new team member, a new freelancer join 2 weeks into the month, you'll just be charged a prorated amount for the rest of the month for their license. And if they're only in for 2 weeks, you could easily just drop them off. We call that hibernating them, especially if we're going to be working with them again. And it means that they'll be dropped off the payment for next month too. Cool.
So I think that answers your question,
That should
Antonio.
Yeah. And Tom's question there as well, we did take a good look at that. So hopefully you've got those answers for that one there, Tom. I want to go back to Matt's question at the top, which is really good. I'll post it as a question because, it's a nice place to come back and find it. But Matt's asking about studios' deadlines are tight and there's always pressure on. What are the signs of staff burning out and what's the best way to prevent this?
Well, first of all, Matt, I think we've touched based on it a little bit in the beginning, is that having a view of the schedule and understanding how available or how unavailable your team is. So Paddy did try and schedule a task for himself on the day where actually it showed that it was red, so he wasn't available that day, and you could see straight away this is an indicator that okay, so something is wrong. So you probably shouldn't schedule this task for that day for Paddy because he is actually very busy this time. So you don't want to overwhelm your team. Obviously, if you are managing director or you're someone who scheduling those tasks, you're the one in charge in a way. So the team will feel like they have to do it because it's in their day, and which means they will have to work longer than usual, and which leads then to the burnout.
And that always comes back to the team setup, ensuring that we've got the right number of hours assigned for each day that they work. So if you do have team members that work part-time, for example, or, just do half days, maybe once a week, just ensuring that these hours against their setup are indicative of the hours that team member you want, how many hours you really want them working, or, they need to be working. That is a good place to start in terms of keeping things on track from their forth, I suppose. And in terms of, keeping an eye on the team, a mental health policy is a great place to start as well. Knowing that team member or a particular team member, if they are experiencing burnout, just a mental health policy means that they will know that they'll feel that they'll be able to take a day off and that not necessarily be a problem if something like their mental health really is suffering. For example, someone's health is always more important than a deadline, for example, at the end of the day, and knowing that person has confidence in knowing that they'll be looked after from taking a day off, then if that'll help them, I'd certainly encourage that. We've got a mental health policy here as well. So I think that should be an essential in the agency.
Yeah, 100%. And letting them know that it's actually okay to take a day off and okay to reach out if they're in trouble or feeling low. And also on Matt's question, having a look at the schedule, on to-do schedule, and for example, you have a busy week for the whole studio, and there are lots of deadlines happening. So really having a good look at who can actually take some weight on their shoulders and actually have less work to do today. You can shift stuff around, and making sure the team is actually helping each other. They're helping themselves to achieve this goal, and they actually, if they feel appreciated as well. Obviously, I will ask Paddy for help. If I don't have enough time to finish this, can you take on an hour and have a look at it for me? And encouraging that communication between the team as well.
Certainly. And Aaron's made a really good point there as well in the chat. He's just said identifying where that pressure is coming from is a really important part of that. If it is coming from the work or from writing checks the team can't cash, knowing where that's coming from and finding the source and trying to deal with that in some ways is going to be good as well. Cool. What do you think?
What time is it? I feel like I can talk about it forever.
I think it's nearly midday, which means I think we're ready to wrap things up.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody, to attend this webinar. I think it's very important for us to discuss this, and we're always happy to talk about it more personally with you guys as well, and give you some ideas and on things. And as Patty mentioned, in Streamtime, we are quite lucky. We've got our mental health policy in place, and we're always happy to share that with anyone.
Yeah, certainly. It's really interesting. We did. We work with Never Not Creative, who are a community for the creative industry. And last year, I'm not sure if you know, Matt, but they conducted a big survey into mental health in the creative industry and media and marketing. But essentially, the findings were that there seems to be quite an issue or a big problem with the state of the industry when it comes to mental health and how readily people are willing to talk about it or deal with it, versus how easily something like a mental health issue could be induced. So nevernotcreative.org is the website. You can go check out more about what they're doing there, and read up on some of the findings in that survey, which you might find interesting too.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if anyone has any other questions, just drop us a line in the help area in Streamtime, and we'll chat to you soon. And otherwise, maybe we'll see you next week.
Yep, see you next week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.